She didn't know the child mattered. She didn't know the street was owned. And she definitely didn't know that feeding him would put her name in a man's mouth who never learned names unless they were worth remembering. All she did was stop walking. It was the kind of rain people ignored. Light enough to walk through, heavy enough to soak you anyway. Ivrin Hale was already late when she heard the crying, soft, steady, and too patient for comfort. A child sat near the closed grocery store, hands empty, eyes fixed on nothing. She hesitated, checked her bag, one meal left. She almost walked on. Instead, she knelt, unwrapped the food, and placed it in front of him without a word. Across the street, an engine idled. Someone watched. By the time Seorian Cade stepped out of the rain, the child was eating quietly, and Ivrin had already done something the street would remember. You didn't linger. You didn't ask questions. And you definitely didn't interfere. Ivrin Hale had learned those rules the hard way years ago, back when she still believed being kind meant being safe. Since then, she moved through the city like background noise, noticed only when absent. That night, the rain blurred the neon signs into weak reflections on the pavement. Storefronts were shut tight, metal gates pulled down like clenched teeth. The grocery store on the corner had closed months ago, but people still gathered near it. Habits were hard to break, hunger even harder. The child sat against the wall, small shoulders tucked inward, as if trying to disappear into the bricks. He couldn't have been more than 6. His jacket was thin. His shoes didn't match. Ivrin didn't ask questions. She never did. She crouched, placed the food between them, and stepped back. No smile, no lecture, just space. The child ate quietly, eyes darting up only once, long enough to confirm she wasn't going to take it back. That should have been the end of it. But the block noticed. A man across the street lowered his phone. Another turned away from a conversation that had nothing to do with children. A car engine remained on, idling, patient. This wasn't about gratitude. It was about disruption. When Ivrin stood and walked away, she felt it. Not fear, not yet, but the subtle weight of attention pressing against her back. The sense that something ordinary had just been misfiled as something else entirely. She told herself she was imagining it. She always did. Wait. Not sharp, not loud, calm enough to feel intentional. Ivrin stopped without turning around. Her heart didn't race, but it slowed, like it was bracing. Footsteps approached, measured, unhurried. When she turned, she saw a man about 10 feet away, standing just outside the glow of a flickering streetlight. He wasn't dressed like trouble, and that's what made him unsettling. No excess, no flash, just control. His eyes weren't cold. They were assessing. "I want to ask you something," he said. Ivrin nodded once. Not permission, acknowledgement. Why him? She glanced past him, back toward the child. Because he was hungry. That's not what I asked. She met his gaze. Then you already know the answer. A pause. Most people filled silence with defense or apology. Ivrin didn't. She had learned silence could be armor. The man studied her the way people studied locked doors. Less curiosity, more calculation. You don't live on this block, he said. No. You don't work here. No. You gain nothing by stopping. She shrugged. I didn't lose anything either. That was the moment something shifted, not visibly, not dramatically, but internally like a scale tipping by a fraction. My name is Seorian, he said. People here usually don't act unless they're trying to be seen. I was. I know. That answer unsettled her more than suspicion would have. He stepped back, increasing the distance instead of closing it. A deliberate choice. You should be careful, he added. Kindness travels faster than truth. Before she could respond, he turned and walked away. Not toward the child, not toward the car, but down a side street that swallowed him whole. Ivrin stood there longer than she meant to, the rain seeping through her sleeves. For the first time, she wondered if she had misunderstood the danger, not in the street, but in being noticed by someone who understood it too well. The consequences didn't come immediately. They never did. The next morning, Ivrin showed up for her shift at the storage facility where she logged inventory overnight. The supervisor avoided her eyes. Her name wasn't on the board. "Budget cuts," he muttered. "Nothing personal." At the bus stop, a woman she'd nodded to for months suddenly stood farther away. At the corner cafe, the cashier hesitated before taking her money, like the bills might be contaminated. By the end of the day, the pattern was impossible to ignore. People weren't afraid of her. They were afraid for her, or worse, of what being near her might imply. She overheard it by accident, two men talking too quietly to be discreet. "That's her. The one from last night. Did you see who spoke to her?" No name, no explanation, just association. By evening, her phone rang. An unknown number. She let it go to voicemail. The message was brief. "You didn't ask for this, I know, but pretending it isn't happening will make it worse. We need to talk." Seoryan's voice was calm, controlled, and unmistakably final. Ivrin sat on her bed in the dim apartment, phone heavy in her hand. She had lived her life avoiding attention, believing neutrality was safety. Now she understood the truth too late. You don't choose when you become visible. You only choose what you do after. And whatever she chose next would cost her something she couldn't afford to lose. A cafe near the courthouse, all glass windows and neutral colors, where conversations blurred into background noise and nothing dramatic ever happened. The kind of place where power hid behind normalcy. Ivrin arrived early. She always did now. Being late felt reckless. When Seoryan walked in, no one reacted. No heads turned. No sudden silence. He blended in the way only people with real control could. He sat across from her, without ordering. "You're being discussed," he said, not unkindly. "I noticed." Discussion becomes decision faster than people expect. Ivrin folded her hands together. "You're here to fix it." Seoryan didn't answer immediately. He watched the barista wipe the counter for the third time, watched a man at the window refresh his phone like something might change if he looked hard enough. "No," he said, "I'm here to explain it." That unsettled her, more than reassurance would have. "You were seen doing something that didn't align with this block's understanding of how things work," he continued. "People assumed intent. Intent creates stories." "And stories create fear," she said. "Yes." "So what do you want from me?" He met her eyes. "Nothing permanent." She almost laughed, almost. He went on. "For a short time, it would benefit both of us if the assumption became structured." Her breath caught. "You want people to think I'm yours." "I want them to stop inventing worse explanations." "That's protection." "That's containment," he corrected. "There's a difference." Silence stretched between them. "What's the cost?" she asked. Seoryan didn't hesitate. "You will be seen." Ivrin leaned back, chair creaking softly. That word, seen, landed heavier than any threat. "And when this ends?" "That depends on how long people remember." She nodded slowly. Borrowed protection. Temporary shelter from a storm she never asked for, paid for with visibility she had spent a lifetime avoiding. "I didn't agree yet," she said. "I know." But the fact that he didn't leave told her. He already understood the direction things were moving. Seoryan walked her home once. Not touching, not hovering, just present. The next day, someone held a door open for her a little too long. At the laundromat, a man apologized for bumping into her before she even turned around. By the third day, people stopped pretending not to recognize her. The block adjusted its posture around her. Conversations softened. Glances lingered. Fear reshaped itself into caution. And caution, she learned, could be just as isolating. Her phone buzzed more now. Messages she didn't answer. Numbers she didn't save. Seoryan never stayed long. He didn't crowd her life. He simply existed near it, enough to confirm the narrative without feeding it. One evening, as they stood outside her building, she finally asked, "Does this ever bother you?" What? Being mistaken for someone people assign meaning to. He considered the question seriously. No, what bothers me is when people believe they understand me because of it. That night, she realized something uncomfortable. He wasn't enjoying this. Neither was she. They were coexisting, inside a misunderstanding large enough to shape reality. At the grocery store, the clerk refused to charge her for a bag. Ivrin insisted. The clerk's smile faltered. "Please," the woman whispered. "It's fine." Ivrin walked out with the bag heavy in her hands, stomach tight. Protection was supposed to feel like relief. Instead, it felt like debt. A location, a time, no pressure language. Seorion's office occupied the upper floor of a converted warehouse. Clean lines, no decoration that wasn't functional. Windows faced the city, not the block. "This is where rumors come to die," he said, gesturing for her to sit. She remained standing. "Then kill them." He didn't smile. "There's a way to end this cleanly," he said, "but it requires clarity." She waited. "We formalize the assumption," he continued. "Publicly, briefly, long enough for attention to move on." Her jaw tightened. "You're asking me to perform." "I'm asking you to decide." "Same thing." He stepped closer, not threatening, earnest. "If you walk away now, the story won't vanish. It will mutate. People don't like loose ends. And if I stay, you inherit the narrative, but you control it." Ivrin finally sat down. "What happens to the child?" she asked. Seorion's expression shifted, not guilt, not pride, something quieter. "He's with family now, real family." She nodded. That mattered. "What happens to me when this ends?" she asked. Seorion looked out the window. "That depends on whether you believe safety is the absence of attention or the ability to survive it." The room felt suddenly smaller. She understood now. This wasn't rescue. This was alignment, a shared risk. "I won't belong to you," she said. "I wouldn't ask," he replied. But the truth sat between them anyway. Once you stand in someone's shadow, part of it stays with you. Ivrin stood. "I need time." "You don't have much," Seorion said gently. She left without answering. Outside, the city moved as it always had, unaware, indifferent, relentless. For the first time in her life, Ivrin realized neutrality had never protected her. It had only delayed the moment she'd have to choose. She walked. Past the bus stop, past the block, past the place where she'd fed the child and unknowingly stepped into someone else's gravity. She walked until the city thinned into longer streets and fewer witnesses. The truth was simple and uncomfortable. Every option available to her was a compromise. There was no clean exit, no version where she returned to being unnoticed without cost. By morning, her phone held 3 missed calls from Seorion. No messages. That restraint told her everything. When she finally returned to her apartment, a folded note waited under her door. No logo, no signature. "People are deciding without you. That's worse." She sat on the floor, back against the door, and laughed quietly. Not because it was funny, but because it was accurate. That evening, she went to the cafe near the courthouse alone. She chose visibility, but on her own terms. When Seorion arrived, she didn't stand, didn't apologize. "I'll do it," she said before he could speak, "but not the way you planned." He studied her. "Explain." "No public displays, no staged moments. We don't sell closeness. We sell calm. You don't follow me. You don't correct rumors. You let people get bored." "That takes longer." "I can handle longer," she said. "I can't handle pretending." Silence stretched. Finally, Seorion nodded. "Then we do it your way." In that moment, Ivrin understood something critical. She wasn't choosing safety. She was choosing agency. And agency, she was learning, often looked like choosing wrong on purpose, because it was the only honest option left. Without spectacle, interest dulled. Conversations softened, attention drifted. But something else changed too. Seoryeon kept his distance, faithfully, too faithfully. They stopped speaking outside of necessity. Their conversations shortened. The shared tension that once held meaning turned brittle. One night, standing outside her building, Ivrin finally broke it. "You're pulling away," she said. "I'm respecting the boundary you set. That's not what this feels like." He looked at her then, not guarded, not distant, tired. "You think distance is neutral," he said quietly. "It is. It leaves space for interpretation." "That's what we wanted." "No," he replied. "That's what we needed. There's a difference." She exhaled slowly. "Then why does it feel like something ending?" "Because it is," he said honestly. "Just not the part you think." They stood there, two people connected by circumstance, now divided by choice. Ivrin realized the cruel irony. She had learned how to survive attention, but not how to live with what it changed. When Seoryeon turned to leave, she didn't stop him. Some distances, once created, couldn't be crossed again without cost. The block forgot her name. That should have been victory. Ivrin found new work, quieter, temporary. Life stabilized into something resembling before, but altered, like a familiar room with one wall shifted. One evening, she passed the old grocery store. The wall was clean now, no child, no memory anyone else would claim. Her phone buzzed. One message, unknown number. The block is quiet again, so am I. She stared at the screen. No invitation, no explanation, just acknowledgement. Ivrin typed a reply, deleted it, typed again. "I didn't disappear, I chose." Minutes passed. Then, so did I. She slipped the phone into her pocket and kept walking. The story didn't end with reunion, or clarity, or relief. It ended with two people who understood each other better than anyone else, choosing separate stability over shared uncertainty. And with a quiet, irreversible truth: kindness doesn't always save you. Sometimes, it simply changes the shape of your life forever.